My name's Campbell, and I have a scary story to share with you. It's not scary because of ghosts or demons or anything like that. It's scary because it's the story of how I thought I was literally going insane. I've been told it's an unbelievable story, but trust me, it's all true. And it happened to me just over a year ago. Let me set the scene. I was 18 years old, just out of high school, and getting ready to go to college. I wasn't accepted at any of the schools close to home, so I ended up going out of state. Moving so far from home was a little nerve-wracking, but I was also really excited. It felt crazy that I was allowed so much freedom, you know? New city, new me. I could do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. I had to figure out where I was going to live, and after looking at all the options, I decided to live off campus. I think it was that urge to have as much freedom as possible, taking control of my decisions. But it turned out to be my first mistake. My second mistake was not meeting my potential roommate in person before signing the lease. To be fair, I was a 5-hour drive away, so it just made sense to find someone, anyone looking for a roommate. I found a great little apartment, off campus, but still pretty close to school. The price was really reasonable, and technically, since it was a 2-bedroom, we wouldn't even be roommates. We'd be apartment mates. I was sold. I didn't even have to sign anything yet because the guy living there, Mark, was just trying to sublet the space after his other roommate moved out unexpectedly. So I got the living situation checked off. One less thing to stress about. All summer long, Mom and I shopped for stuff for my new apartment. Mid-August, I quit my job lifeguarding at the pool and we packed up all my belongings. My parents were going to road trip with me, our van packed full of practically everything I owned. It was a long, slow journey. Especially because I get really car sick. When we got to the city, found the address of the apartment on Google Maps, and felt a weird mix of emotions, sort of a combo car sickness / anticipation. A new chapter of my life was about to begin. I felt like an adult for the first time. I texted my new roommate to let him know we were in town. He was at home, ready to give me my key and show us around the place, so he said just come on up. Once we'd found the right apartment building, we took the elevator up to the second floor, lugging a couple of suitcases of my stuff with us. It felt weird not to get a key from the front desk or anything, and I started to get nervous about the whole situation. I'd never met this guy. What if he was a murderer or just a total creep? No worries. The guy who answered the door looked totally normal. Average haircut, jeans, a band t-shirt. All in all, he looked like me, but maybe a couple of years older. "Hi, I'm Mark," he said, holding out his hand. "You must be Campbell, and these must be your parents. Well, come inside. There's not really a lot to see, to be honest, but I'll give you a tour anyway." Mark showed us around, and he was right. There wasn't a lot to see. My room was bare, and Mark's was pretty messy, but it all seemed like just normal college kid stuff. Some beer bottles, posters, a pile of dirty clothes on a chair. Pretty standard. He hadn't exaggerated the amount of privacy. For a roommate situation, it was pretty good. "Technically, I think it was just meant to be a 1-bedroom with a den," he explained, "but it's way cheaper to split it between us than have all this extra room for one person. It all works out pretty well." "Why did your old roommate move out so suddenly?" I asked. "Family issues, I think. He didn't really give many details, and I didn't want to press. It seemed sensitive," Mark said lightly. "Do you guys want some help carrying stuff up from your car?" "Oh, that would be lovely," my mom answered. We made the trek from the car to the apartment a couple times, lugging everything up until finally the car was empty, and my now bedroom was full of random piles of stuff. I gave my parents goodbye hugs and then started to unpack. For the first couple weeks, things were pretty normal. You haven't noticed anything weird yet, right? Well, neither had I. And unlike you, I didn't have anyone at the beginning of the story telling me that things were about to get insane. I decorated my room, started going to orientation stuff, and mostly, I didn't see my roommate at all. We had some pretty basic interactions, you know, asked about each other's days and stuff, and sometimes I would hear him playing music in his room. But because his room was on the other side of mine from the living room and kitchen, I never had to walk past his room to get anything. So I never really saw him. He seemed to keep to himself, which was cool. I did too. Looking back, the first kind of strange thing I noticed was hearing conversations coming from Mark's room. Definitely 2 sets of male voices, usually at night or super early in the morning when I was still in bed. They weren't loud or disruptive or anything. They were just noticeable. One of them was definitely Mark, but I could swear I could hear someone replying, although they were obviously trying to keep it quiet. And I couldn't make out what they were saying. At first, I'd hear voices pretty infrequently, maybe once a week or so, but after a while, I felt like there was another guy there more often than not. It made me feel really weird. Don't get me wrong, I'm not homophobic or anything. That wasn't the problem. The weird thing was that Mark and I shared a bathroom, we shared a kitchen, and I was home a lot. And I never saw anyone else there. Like, never. Whoever this mystery guy was, he didn't seem to eat or pee or come out of Mark's room. At all. Mark was around, cooking, showering, and all, but by himself. It was so weird. I tried dropping hints to make sure he knew I wasn't a massive homophobe, but it didn't seem to change anything. The longer I stayed there, the more I started to notice stuff. It's hard to explain, but sometimes he just seemed different. Spacey, maybe? He would forget things I'd recently told him, like asking me how college was going when he'd just asked that a day ago. But he was equally interested to hear the exact same answer again. I started to wonder if he had some kind of memory problem, or if he was on drugs. That was another thing. Mark was like always awake. Sometimes I would see him making a bowl of cereal at 3 a.m. Hey, I don't judge. And sometimes I would see him going off for a morning run at 6. He seemed to have no kind of routine at all, even though I knew he worked at the coffee shop down the street during the days, so he wasn't catching any naps. Then, one night, I was out at a bar with some friends. I'm talking late, like 2 a.m., walking from club to club, chatting about nothing in particular. At the last bar of the night, I swear to God I saw Mark, but not drinking like the rest of us. He was bartending. Mark couldn't be working all day at the coffee shop and then all night at a bar, could he? I blinked and moved closer, but the next thing I knew, he was gone, and I could only see the other bartender, a girl. I hung around for a while, but never saw him again. Maybe I was too drunk and imagining things? Man, Mark had really gotten in my head. The day at the bar was the beginning of real insanity. And I do mean insanity. I started to wonder if the stress of college and the amount of partying I was doing something to my brain and making me hallucinate. I seriously thought I was losing it. I'd see Mark walk out the door, and then 20 minutes later, I'd see him walk out the door again as if the first time had never happened. He'd go out to get McDonald's, but then on my way to my room, I'd see him coming out of the shower. When I brought it up a couple of times, he'd just laugh and ask if I was getting enough sleep. I was at my breaking point. The only person I could ask about this was Mark, and Mark seemed pretty convinced I was either joking or making things up. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Then one night, I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, just listening to the sound of Mark and the guy mumbling away in the next room. Suddenly, I sat upright. I walked closer to the wall and put my ear against it. I realized that part of the reason I felt so unnerved was because they had the same voice. I was listening to Mark talk to Mark. Either he was insane, or I burst through his door. I know I shouldn't have done it, but I just had to know. Right there in the middle of the room stood Mark, dressed in his usual outfit, hair neat, looking like he was ready to go out somewhere, even though it was nearly midnight. Then lying in bed, in pajamas, and his hair a mess, but clearly recognizable, was Mark. Oh. Standing Mark was wearing the exact outfit I always saw Mark wear. Bed Mark was wearing the pajamas he always wore when he was making breakfast. They were both Mark. "What the hell?" I yelled, backing away from their shocked faces. "I knew it. I thought I was going crazy, but I wasn't. This is why your old roommate moved out." "Calm down," said Standing Mark, moving towards me. "Stay away from me. No, I won't calm down. Why would you lie like that? I mean, what the—" I wildly gestured at both of them in the room. What is this?" Bed Mark sighed. "We needed to save some money. Obviously, we're identical, so we had the idea, why not pretend to be the same person so we only have to pay half of everything? Steven works nights at a bar, and I work during the day, so it was almost perfect." I'd seen enough. I ran out of there and called my dad, who was completely shocked. He wanted me out of there right away. He got me a hotel for the night and came the very next day to help me pack up my stuff and move. We ended up finding the owner of the apartment and showing him the proof that they had been advertising for a roommate and pretending that they were one person. Mom wanted me to contact the police, but I was pretty sure they'd think I was crazy. The landlord said he was going to evict them for breaking the terms of the lease. I wish I could say I knew how Mark and Steven's story ended, but I never asked, and I never saw anything about it in the news either. I mean, for all I know, they didn't give me their real names either. I decided to move into a dorm on campus. One without a roommate, thank you very much. Obviously, I know this type of thing can't happen often. There aren't many identical twins anyway, but I don't want to risk it. I'm glad that I wasn't going crazy, but I still can't believe that the whole situation actually happened, and I can't believe Steven and Mark thought they could get away with it. I'm just thankful that I wasn't living with a crazy person and that I never felt like I was in danger and that I never got hurt. Things are going a lot better for me now that I'm living on my own. I know I'm mentally stable. Ha! And school's going better now too, now that I can focus on studying instead of fixating on my roommate situation. So there you have it. My story about how one roommate was actually two identical people. How about you guys? Does anyone have a nightmare roommate story that can top mine? Or even just a story about how someone tricked you into believing something that wasn't true? Let me know in the comments. I read them all. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to like and subscribe.
Hey guys, it's Sarah here from My Crazy Stories. Thanks for watching this episode. Before you go, please hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss a new video. Oh, and if you haven't watched them yet, check out these other episodes that are trending right now. Thanks a lot and see you guys next time.